Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I always intended to speak. It was my little misunderstanding that somebody else from the other side would have spoken, and therefore I thank you for the discretion. I always intended to speak, Mr. Speaker. As a member of Parliament for Vieux North, while the airport is not in the constituency of Vieux North, it is in the constituency of Vieux South, but activities at Hewanorra International Airport impact the whole country, but in particular, when you speak of physical activities, whether it be in the so-called DSH area or at Hewanorra, clearly impact the constituency of Vieux North. So I'm happy that I have an opportunity to speak. But Mr. Speaker, how can I believe the Prime Minister? As a member of Parliament, how can I believe the Prime Minister? Mr. Speaker, you recall the $100 million US loan. You recall, Mr. Speaker, all of the debates as to whether we should take a loan of $100 million US dollars, over 270 million EC dollars, or whether we should go the way of the World Bank, the advisor of the World Bank. You recall then, Mr. Speaker, members opposite clamoring and indicating that they knew what they were doing and that the government had everything in place. We argued then, Mr. Speaker, that the government did not show clearly how they were going to finance the redevelopment of the Hewanorra International Airport. We argued then, Mr. Speaker, that the government through SLASPA had not been transparent and had not declared the plans for the airport, had not discussed adequately with the people of St. Lucia, and that the government was placing a guarantee then of over 270 million EC dollars on the backs of the people of St. Lucia through SLASPA. We argued and argued. But today, Mr. Speaker, we are back here. We are back here and the government comes to guarantee $202,500,000. So in all, Mr. Speaker, $472,500,000. How can I believe them, Mr. Speaker? How can I believe the Prime Minister? Qui manière, Mr. Speaker, moi ça quoi ça Premier ministre a dit en les affaires aéroport ça là. Là ils vini premier coup, ils vini pour 100 millions de dollars américains. Et qu'ils dit yo kay wanger airport là. Nous dit qui manière ça difficile pour comprendre parce que personne pas qu'on ouais plan avec ça gouvernement qui a moutué c'est bagaille computer fait n'importe maman qui ça fait lui ça fait ça mais yo ka fait grosse cérémonie pour moutuer ces bagaille ça là avec personne pas assuré qui ça qui en beau yo ça fait airport ça là. Nous te dit qui nous pas te ka point ça gouvernement qui a fait en toute valeur parce que nous pas te quoi ça gouvernement qu'a fait qui c'est ça qui tout l'argent pour bâtir airport. Et aujourd'hui nous ka vivre en parlement et gouvernement voulait en haut 200 millions 202 millions 500 000 dollars yo dit pour bâtir airport. Mr. Speaker, how can you believe them? How can I believe them on behalf of my constituents? Close to $500 million, Mr. Speaker. It is very clear that the increase in the debt guarantee is not of concern to them. It is very clear, Mr. Speaker, that based on the performance of this government, that those issues are of no concern to them. What is important to them, Mr. Speaker, based on what I have seen, is that they can award direct awards up to the tune of $500 million, Mr. Speaker. What is important to this government is that they can cause a contractor from Taiwan to get to build the airport without tendering, Mr. Speaker. That is what's important to them. And so it feeds into the character of this government. Yo pa me le si se $600 million guarantee. Yo pa me le avec ça. Caractère yo c'est pour bailler gros l'argent cette ici pour gros contracteurs sorti l'autre pays. Et c'est ça yo a fait avec premier par aéroport. So all of what you will hear, Mr. Speaker, from them, I can predict what they will say. Rochamel, I can predict what they will say. But the future of St. Lucia, the future of the debt situation of St. Lucia is not what is important to them. It is direct awards. Combien de monde qui s'ajoignent c'est go l'argent ça là? Et c'est pas Saint Lucien, Mr. Speaker.
Except for stuff.
No tendering, Mr. Speaker.
Except for stuff.
Mr. Speaker, you will recall we warned them that they will have to come back to the house to borrow more money. Et c'est pas si l'argent, c'est go l'argent. But why? Why must the government go that way? What is the compelling reason, Mr. Speaker? And my comrade, the member from Labrie, asked the same question. What has happened to the $270 million from the Taiwan Import-Export Bank? Qui ça qui a empêché l'argent ça défléché? Après, you tenir a go ceremony, qui a montré go portrait, Mr. Speaker. There was a ceremony with renderings and all sorts of things. What has happened to the $270 million from the Taiwan Import-Export Bank? What has happened to it? Why is it taking so much time? I can recall, Mr. Speaker, the leader of the opposition saying right here in this house that the Taiwanese better be careful that every I is dotted and every T is crossed where this loan is concerned. I can also recall that this statement, Mr. Speaker, was not only received here in the Parliament. I know of messages that came from far and wide. And I can only guess that the Taiwanese are dotting every I and crossing every T, Mr. Speaker. Because we will not go gently into the night where this is concerned. We will not go gently into the night after all what has happened with Taiwanese funds, with the United Workers' Party, Mr. Speaker. And today we are here again. And it's connected to the loan, the first loan that was guaranteed here of $100 million US from the Taiwan Import-Export Bank. Because this loan guarantee today is connected to it, Mr. Speaker. Because we are speaking about airport development. Nous pas gagner acide, Mr. Speaker, avec qu'à accepter que le gouvernement a prêté, a garanti $100 millions l'argent méritien sorti Taïwan. Avec les leaders de l'opposition ont fait qui c'est Taïwanese là, ni pour garder ça bien. Parce que nous pas gagner aller dormir, aller l'argent cette ici, $100 millions américains. And the leader of the opposition, Mr. Speaker, also cautioned the technocrats who are involved in this operation to dot every I and cross every T. Because today, the government is back for $202 million, Mr. Speaker. The question I ask myself is how will these millions be divided? How will these millions be divided? How many direct awards will come out of the $202 million? Because that is what this government is about. And can you believe them, Mr. Speaker? Can you really believe this Prime Minister? Can you believe them when they come here and pontificate about this airport? The road which was built, the reported $13 million road, was built because of DSH. after much protest, the Prime Minister and his ministers indicated that no, it's for the airport. Can you really trust them? What is the truth? What is the reality? And if you go to this road, Mr. Speaker, you notice a section going right along the river, and the member for Labrie is correct. While we are not engineers, we have lived in this area. I was raised in La Richousse. While I'm from Grace, Mr. Speaker, I was raised in La Richousse. I lived many years in La Richousse. La Richousse, Vieux. And I know how this river behaves. And so, as parliamentarians, we question the wisdom of this section of road passing right next to fiberglass and going south. Parce que nous connaissons la rivière La Richousse là. Nous connaissons la rivière. We know what happened, Mr. Speaker, when the unfortunate incident when a hero lost his life when the waters came through this area. And so can we trust the government in terms of what they are planning to do there? And why are they going this way? Can we trust them, Mr. Speaker, when financing, just as they're trying to finance this airport, we saw intentions to finance the St. Jude Hospital. We saw a hotly debated letter, the Pajoa letter. That one saying it's not his signature. That other one saying it may be the signature. And no investigations. Can we really trust them? And even though the terminal building is required, can we trust them, Mr. Speaker? And why did you really start without the approved plans? Just like this St. Jude Hospital, what they call the wing, which is no wing at all, Mr. Speaker. You're tired of confusing people. Just like the Minister for Agriculture earlier tried to confuse us with the banana exports. Why are they continuing to try to confuse us? And what is the role of the so-called DSH in the interaction with the terminal building? And what is the role of the so-called DSH in the interaction with the airport master plan? Why is there so much secrecy, Mr. Speaker? For $202 million additional dollars, why is there so much secrecy? Qui manière Jean Saint-Lucie passe à ça exactement ça qu'il a fait avec airport là? And you know what, Mr. Speaker? I'm not surprised. They're not being transparent at all. Just as they were not transparent on the We Pay matter, they are not transparent with this $202 million and this airport terminal building. So why can't we trust them now? Why do we have to trust this Prime Minister now, Mr. Speaker? This government, as the member for Labrie said, they're seeking a shortcut to ensure that there is fat and grease in the ensuing period, in the upcoming period, Mr. Speaker. That is what's happening. This is what I believe. And you know what? What is interesting, Mr. Speaker, in relation to this airport terminal and what this government is doing? The Prime Minister continues to show his character, Mr. Speaker. You remember when it was DSH? He went to Vieux and he said, we're living in a ghetto. Do you want to live in the Pearl of the Caribbean? And so he has gone back to Vieux. And there is this picture of so many young Vieux boys looking at this photograph, and they're reporting that the boys are filled with glee, and they're so happy. This is the same Prime Minister who went to Vieux and told these same young boys that there would be 400 horses, and at least 800 of them would be cleaning horses, Mr. Speaker. That's the same Prime Minister. The same one. In his budget address, he told the same young men of Vieux that there would be 800 jobs.
Honorable member, come back on track.
Mr. Speaker, the promises have been there before.
The entire presentation.
Gouvernement vient prêter 200 millions de dollars pour bâtir l'aéroport, Mr. Speaker. Avec même drawing l'aéroport ça là, qui gouvernement vient chercher l'argent pour prêter. Premier ministre là tenu en portrait même terminal là qui gouvernement vient acheter l'argent pour prêter ici et qu'a moutué jeune homme vieux foy. Ça moi qu'a dit à Mr. Speaker, moi qu'a connecter lui parce que c'est même portrait terminal là avec ces mêmes 200 millions de dollars qui a venu en caille ça l'a prêté. Ça c'est même bagaille là. Ça moi qu'a dit assez. Ça pas première fois premier ministre là a dit jeune homme vieux fort qui aura joué un travail. Là il a fait DSH Mr. Speaker. Premier ministre là te dit qui c'est jeune homme vieux fort là a dit 400 cheval et que c'est jeune homme vieux fort qui a jeune travail. Même quand il a fait avec l'aéroport, il te dit c'est jeune homme vieux fort et tout le monde vieux fort qui a parlé pour est-ce qu'il a été dans le ghetto avec you can wait a pearl of the Caribbean. So what I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, is this. This thing about the airport and the $202 million, the Prime Minister once again is promising things in Glagla and there are no details, Mr. Speaker. And so, give me 3 years, Mr. Speaker. Give me 3 years. The airport, the Pearl of the Caribbean, only the Vieux area. Give me 3 years. Eh bien, on va jouer 3 years, Mr. Speaker. What I see here in this resolution is another attempt to bluff the people of St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker. It's another attempt to have a pool of funds where this government can procure direct awards, Mr. Speaker. It's another attempt to show once again the character of this Prime Minister, because time and time again, it is proven that this Prime Minister does not really care what you think. And he said it himself. He does not listen, he does not care, people are jackasses, so he comes to Parliament over and over again to try to prove that we are jackasses. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Member for Vieux North. Please stand, sir. The last part of the statement, I would like you to withdraw it, that the Prime Minister comes to this House to prove that we are jackasses. I expect you to remove that statement off our record at this present time, sir.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister did not come to the House to say it, but he said it publicly, Mr. Speaker.
No. I want you to withdraw. No, remain standing. I want you to spell it out. I want you to withdraw your statement that you said that the Prime Minister comes to this House to prove that we are jackasses. I want you to remove that part, sir.
To prove that we are jackasses?
Withdraw your statements, sir, please.
The Prime Minister did not come to this House to say we are jackasses, but I believe he comes here to...
The Honorable Member, remain standing.
I withdraw, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much.